now. Yes, live on Facebook. Hi, and welcome everybody to For Feck's Sake Marketing with Adventures with Carmel. And today I've got Victoria with me. So Victoria comes all the way from Houston at the moment. Isn't that where you are situated? Although that's
That's
not
right.
where she's originally from, but we're going to get into that. So Victoria's going to share with us later the top 3 tips that she can share about public speaking. Now, I'm going to just barely introduce Victoria only because I want her to tell us a little bit about Victoria and how Victoria came to be where she is now and what she's doing. So tell us a little bit about that, Victoria.
Well, hello everyone. Carmel, I'm so excited to be here. And yes, I am from Houston, Texas. And if you're wondering if everyone in Texas speaks like me, no. This is not a Texas accent. I am originally from Russia, from the former Soviet Union. I've been in the US for, I believe, more than 25 years now. But because I came as an adult, totally dating myself, but I came as an adult, I came at 22, and the accent just stays. It's just not going to go anywhere. But the hilarious thing is when people meet me for the first time, they hear my accent and they see I just got here and they're like, oh, welcome to the United States. It's like, thank you.
Love it, love it, love it. Same here in Australia for me.
That's right. And the only people who don't hear my accent are my kids. They go
Yes.
opposite. Like, no, mom doesn't have an accent. What are you talking about? But yeah, so I moved from the former Soviet Union and I never ever wanted to be a public speaking coach. This was not my dream growing up. In fact, growing up, I was so scared of speaking up that it was problematic for me to speak even one-on-one, let alone in a big group of people. I would I would, force myself, of course, I would do, raise my hand and speak,
Yeah.
but I would blush crimson and I would be all sweaty and trembling. And I'm very much introverted. I'm sure a lot of you are too, but I am, as an introvert, you just don't want to be in the spotlight. You just don't
Mm.
want all eyes on you. You just want to hide. And when I was 10 years old, I had this bad experience where I was on stage and I was supposed to recite a poem that I was just given that day, and I had to recite it from memory. And what happened is what happens to most people when they are on stage alone in front of a microphone with all eyes on them, and there were about 1,000 people in the audience. I froze. I completely forgot not only the poem but my own name. I was just standing there, deer in the headlights, staring, and then people started giggling and I tried to say something that was wrong. I ran off stage in tears and I thought I would never do this ever again. And I truly didn't want to speak in front of other people for the longest time. But then I moved to the United States and I opened my first business very shortly after. And I realized, remember, it was back then, olden
Yeah.
days before YouTube and Facebook.
Yes. No
So
Facebook Lives for you.
right? Which means you had to go live. You had to go and actually meet with people and speak with people and try to attract your tribe that way, the old-fashioned way. And
Mm.
so I was pushing through the fear, and everybody said just do it scared and fake it till you make it and all of that stuff, and I did. And you think I'm going to say, oh, and I succeeded. No. And I didn't succeed. And that was a massive disappointment because those things didn't work at all. I was doing it scared, and all I felt was fear. I couldn't connect with my audience. I continued feeling scared. I was probably getting a tiny bit better, but I still didn't enjoy it, and I was terrified. And only when I started truly figuring out, wait, why am I scared? Who am I? How do I see myself in relation to my audience? How do I see my audience in relation to me? How do I see my topic, what I'm talking about, in relation to my audience? And when I started thinking those thoughts, things started shifting in my mind. And that's when I truly started behaving as if, instead of faking till you make it,
Yeah.
I started actually being
Yeah.
myself, being confident. And that made all the difference in the world. That what truly moved the needle for me. And I continued trying different things, trying different strategies. And then I just, I still didn't want to be a public speaking coach. I was just going on with my life and doing career and building other businesses on the side. And people started coming up to me after my presentations, trainings, and they would say, "You are a natural. Oh my goodness, you should be how are you doing it?" I said, I'm not a natural. I used to be terrified. I don't even know how I'm doing it. They said, like, no, you have to think this through because so many people are afraid. I'm like, oh, interesting. Okay. So I actually sat down and I'm former software engineer. So I deconstructed
Yeah.
everything that I had to go through, step by step by step. And that became the framework that I teach right now. That became the
Yeah.
foundation of my Brilliant Speakers Academy. And that's how I ended up where I am right now. It was a very weird career path,
Yeah.
but I ended up here because of all of the experiences that I've had and because I had to walk this journey myself.
Yeah, and I love that, and I love your honesty. Thank you so much for your honesty, because you go, yeah, and I made it. Well, no, I didn't actually. I stuffed up, and I tried again, and I love when you say behaving it into place, because that's something that I even tell our members. It's like you have to. Everything starts with a thought form, and then you have to emote it into place. You have to be it. You have to behave as if. And it's so much more than that fake it till you make it. It's fake it till you make it is kind of running by the seat of your pants and hoping to God you can make it. But behaving it is being that person, being that confident person, being in it, that it becomes a habit, that it actually becomes something that's easy
Yeah.
to do by the repetition.
And I truly believe that a lot of people out there, they are teaching how to appear confident,
Yes.
but they're teaching you how to appear confident.
Not
And
being
there is a
confident.
massive difference between appearing confident and still feeling like a fraud on the inside and
Um,
actually being confident.
yeah,
It's a massive difference. And
huge.
until you cross this chasm, until you truly learn how to build this unshakable self-confidence where you're still you're not trying to pretend to be someone else, you're
Mm.
still you, but the most confident version of you. Until then, you're going to continue experiencing this question: what am I doing here? Are they judging me? They're going to find out I'm a fraud, right? Like all of those thoughts that
Yes.
are running through your head until you truly begin to feel that unshakable self-confidence. You're
Yeah.
going to stay in that mindset of who am I to be here? They're going to
Yeah.
find out I'm not an expert, even though you may be 10
Yeah.
times more of an expert than you even give yourself credit for. You're going to still feel I'm not an expert. Who am I? So the
Yeah.
big, big, big difference between a peer and
I
being.
love that difference. Yeah. So as you're saying it, I'm going to go, yeah, yeah, that's so true. Because we do put on that facade that we talk about, masks that we have to put on, but
Yeah,
turning up as your speaker self, your presenter self, because we all have the different selves,
right.
is exactly that. That's awesome. I love it. And tell me, so you said earlier that you blushed, you used to blush and everything like that. So how did you stop the physicality of it when you were up speaking?
Yeah, I think the physicality is tightly connected to your brain, obviously,
Yeah,
because what
yeah.
happens is your brain sends you signals
Oh,
or
danger,
sends
danger.
signals, danger, danger, exactly, sends signals to your body that there is danger out there. And your brain cannot tell the difference between what I call reasonable fear and unreasonable fear. It
Yes,
cannot tell the difference in terms of signals to your body.
yes.
If
Yeah,
you are swimming and there is a shark all of a sudden, or if you are standing on stage with a microphone and all eyes are on you, the brain is sending exactly the same fear signal to your body. It's the same physical symptoms. You're blushing, you're sweaty, your hands are shaking, your mouth is dry, right? It's
yeah,
exactly it's exactly what everybody feels. But only when you learn how to stop your brain from doing that, only when you learn how to tell your brain, teach your brain how to truly distinguish between reasonable fear and unreasonable fear,
yeah.
only then it stops sending signals. And there are some other things that I'm going to talk about when you kind of trick your brain into not focusing. on danger and focusing on something else instead. And that's when the signals stop. And
Cool.
all of a
That's
sudden,
exciting.
all of a sudden, half an hour into your presentation, you're like, wait, I'm not blushing. I'm not
Yeah.
sweaty.
I'm
But
there.
I'm actually good. I'm enjoying myself. So it's very, very important to understand, how it works, and
Yeah.
that it's not that something is wrong with you and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm shaking, nobody else is shaking, everybody's shaking. Your brain is just doing its job. It's just protecting you
Yeah,
from danger.
exactly. And quite often I find people in presentations, they're just glad it's not them on the stage. They're sitting in the
That's so
stage
true.
going, thank God it's not me. And
That's
yeah,
so true. It's so
good.
funny because so many of my students, they come in saying that, oh, but I know they're judging me. And I'm like, no, they're sitting there and doing one of three things. Number one is exactly what you said. I'm just glad it's not me.
Yeah,
Number two, they are so wrapped up in what you're saying. They're not even thinking of judging you. They're just
yeah,
so wrapped up in your message, and they're so either inspired or just awed or whatever emotion you were trying to evoke, they're
yeah,
experiencing that. Or if you're really bad and they're bored out of their mind, they're still not judging. They're already daydreaming what they're going to be cooking for dinner and how they're going to spend the weekend with their husband and kids.
yeah,
It's don't give yourself so much credit that that everybody is judging. No, they're really not. It's your job to make sure that you don't get them bored, that you actually keep them on the edge of their seat, like, okay, what's next,
yeah,
what's next, like a
yeah,
thriller,
yeah,
right? But otherwise, they're still not
yeah.
judging.
I sometimes feel that there's a slight bit of judgment, but only in a way of they go, oh my God, I could do better than that. Or, oh my God, she's crap for that moment, because that's what they're afraid of if they got up there. So they're judging themselves, not actually you in that moment.
I like how you're thinking about it.
Yeah.
Possible. They're
Yeah.
kind of projecting themselves and their own
Yes.
fear
Because they're
into that
thinking if I get up
situation.
there and stuffed it up, this is what people will be thinking about me. So
Right.
they're doing it about, they're actually judging themselves, not you at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, quite often I found that.
Interesting.
So yeah, I can't wait for the three tips. But let me just find out a little bit more about Victoria. So tell me what, and this is something that people love to hear about, because we have this illusion and we put people on a pedestal and go, oh, it's all right for you. You were always good at that. Or, it's easy for you. Well, it's easy because we've practiced it. That's probably more of the factor. But tell me what are some of the biggest mistakes that you've made along the way in growing and building your business?
Specifically business, right? Not the public
Yeah,
speaking journey, but the business.
but business in general. Yeah.
Business in general. Yeah. I've built several businesses, and in each of them, I've made lots and lots of mistakes. My very first business, the biggest mistake I was making was not systematizing everything. And was really, I didn't even know that I wasn't systematized. I didn't even know I was supposed to. But I was so lucky that right at that time in the 90s, late 90s, when I was building my first business, a wonderful book came out, which I highly recommend to all entrepreneurs. I don't think it's dated now. I think it's still wonderful. And it's called
Yeah.
E-Myth Revisited
Oh,
by Michael
yes.
Gerber.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I read it, and it was such a revelation because I was like, he's making so much sense. And it's interesting. It's like I still feel goosebumps just thinking about it, because at the very end of the book, he's saying, he was talking about his own journey. And he said, once that curtain went up, it never went down for me. I could see through. And what he meant by it is, once you understand how business runs as a system, you never unsee it. You always
Yes.
understand that
Yeah.
that's how you may not know the details, but you have the feeling of how you're supposed to organize
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
And I credit that book for opening my eyes to how a business should be a system. And only after I read that book, I didn't implement it in my first business. I had to close it because I moved out of state. But when I started my second business, I was doing it from day one,
Right.
systematizing everything. You pretend as if you are about to hire 1 million employees. Even if
Yes.
you are a solopreneur, which I know a lot of coaches are, you still
Mm.
pretend that they're going to be 1 million employees, so at least 10, and you will have to delegate a lot of your
Yeah.
tasks. And so you're creating operation manuals, you're creating standard operating procedures. And it may sound really complicated, but it can be as easy as keeping, a Word document of
Yeah.
what you're doing. And right, especially right now with so many tools available where you can just record with Loom or with Camtasia what you're doing and
Yeah.
record the screen, everything that you're doing on the screen, and then it's done and you can give it to another person. So I would highly recommend that book because that was a fix for the mistake I made in my
Yeah.
first business.
Awesome.
That book is gold.
Yeah, I actually have that book, and you're making me now want to go and revisit it. And what's one of the hardest decisions you've ever had to make in your business?
Well, a couple of decisions were really hard for me. One of them was closing my first company. Um, I was maybe 4 years in it. It was a web development company. It was a very young company. It was a small company. I had some middle-sized clients. I had some smaller clients, but I had developers, consultants working for me, and it was lots of fun. It was a lot of hard work, but economy happened. And oh my gosh,
Mm.
can you guys relate to that, right? Especially after
Yeah, right
2020.
now.
An
Yeah,
economy
yeah,
happened. In about 2002, 2003, there was a massive telecom bust. And most of it happened in Colorado, where I lived at the time.
yeah. Right.
And we had to make a difficult decision to move for my husband's job. And you can't relocate the company because your clients are there. And again, remember back then, it was more face to face than now.
Yes, yes.
And I either had to start from scratch in Houston where we moved, or I had to not move or not
Yeah,
start another business. And I
yeah,
chose to go back to corporate. And that was a very hard decision. And then another hard decision I made was to first get a partner. In my first business, was also my first business, lots of mistakes in my first business. I got a partner without doing homework, without understanding what I was getting myself into. And the hard decision was to part ways with the partner because
yes.
the partner just wasn't adding value
Yeah,
that I was hoping he would. So there are all of these things that truly people can teach you, and somebody taught me this. Somebody sat down with me in a coffee shop, a woman who owned several businesses, and she mentored me on this. She was like, you know what? I know you're thinking about a partner. Let me tell you. And she kind of walked me through.
yeah.
And not that I ignored her advice, I kind of just let it. I'm like, no, no, but in my case, it's all going to be great.
We think we know better. That's
We
okay
think
for
we know
you, but
better.
in my
Yeah,
case,
yeah, but in my case, it's going to be
yeah,
lovely.
yeah,
And everything she said may happen, happened. And so my point is, sometimes you hear people tell you what to do. Sometimes you read books telling you what to
yeah.
do. But for most of us, unfortunately and sadly, we have to go through it ourselves
Yes.
and to step on that brake, 55 times, and hopefully not 55, but hopefully learn our lesson. But that's why my take on building a business, my take on life in general, is that there are no failures. There are only
Yeah,
lessons. And I'm
yeah,
trying to explain this to my kids right now as they're growing up, as
yeah,
they're getting into teenage years. There are no failures. It may feel like a failure, like, what do you mean it's not failure? It's a okay, you can call it a failure slash lesson,
yeah,
because every so-called failure that I had ended up being a lesson. You can look at it as a
yeah,
failure and walk away and learn nothing, or you can look at
yeah,
it as a lesson, walk away and learn and implement it in your next thing.
yeah.
And 10 years later, you're going to be doing the right things because you had those failures in the past.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I
Yeah,
often say we have a feedback loop. It's like you get an idea, you emote it, then you take action, and then you get a
right,
result. The result actually doesn't matter in the beginning. It's either effective or ineffective towards the outcome you want. If it's
right,
effective, keep doing it, harness it, make it better. If it's ineffective, what do you need to learn? Do you need more feedback? What else do you need? Tweak it and then take action again and just keep doing that. It's,
right,
yeah, it's a really step by step process if you look at it in that way. So one more
right,
question before we dip into the three tips, because obviously from all of this learning that you have to have developed some success habits. And I'm always curious. I have this insatiable curiosity. That's one of my things. I've realized years later that it started when I was 2 or 3. I used to pull arms and legs off dolls, not to destroy them, to see how they worked. I want to know, how did they work inside? What was making, this arm go around? I discovered there was a big elastic band was holding the arms together. And a crochet hook is really good to put it back together because I couldn't get it back
Right. Oh
together.
my gosh. Now that you said it, I remember you pull an arm and there is a
Big
rubber in
elastic
between.
band. Yeah, but if
Oh
you
my
took it, if
gosh.
you
You're
took the arm
right.
off, because I went and took the arm off,
Uh,
you could never pull the elastic band back. But a
yeah. Oh my,
crochet hook would. Yeah.
that is so fun. You should
So
have been a surgeon. You see, you're in the wrong business. You should have been a surgeon. You were
no,
clearly
no,
on
no.
that path.
It was more just, it wasn't the trying to fix it. It was more the, how does this work? I literally, if I could
Mm,
get people and go like that inside to see, I'm always curious, why do people think the way they do? Even, and it sounds a
yeah.
bit um not so great, but even murderers or things like that.
Yeah.
Now, not that I agree with anything, but I
Right.
go, what was their experience that
Yeah.
made them believe that that was okay, or that that was
Yeah.
the only way out? So when it come to making my own success habits and things like that, it's like, everyone tells you do this and do that and whatever works for them. So
Yeah.
I always love asking successful people, what are your success habits that are like absolutely non-negotiables that you've set up for yourself?
The first that comes to mind is customer service. It has always been my number one thing. And I had businesses that were very much customer facing. I had a web development business, I had a real estate business, still have a business that science for kids, where we teach kids how to fall in love with science through hands-on science experiments and classes and programs, and I grew it from nothing to, and it's actually a franchise, and I grew it from nothing in 7 years to number one franchise, Nutty Scientist franchise in the United
Oh,
States.
beautiful.
It was beautiful. Then COVID happened, and it's such a person to person, face to face, hands touching everything business that I had to put it on hold because of COVID, since we had it
Right.
pretty bad in the
Okay.
US. But it was great. But it was very much a customer facing business, and I'm very happy that I developed this belief in my first business that there is nothing more important than the happiness of people who you work for, who you serve, because they feel it. They know when you are truly dedicated to their success.
Yeah.
It is so important, and that became a habit. All of my decisions were based on what would be better for my customers, what would be better for my clients.
Yeah.
It was not like, oh, let me make extra $5. No, let me maybe lose $5, but I'm going to gain the trust of this
Yeah.
client. And then the
Love it.
referrals come, and then the
Yeah.
word of mouth comes. And that translated into every one of my businesses. And every business that I've had so many people come to me and say, we only want to work with you and with your company because of how you treated us, how your
Yeah.
people treated us. There is
Yeah.
definitely a culture. And so that is a habit. And so if, let's say,
Mm.
you're a coach, you have to create that habit of thinking, because so many companies say customer first, right? It became such a slogan, it almost
Yes.
means
Yes.
nothing.
Yes. Yes.
But
Yes. Yes.
you kind of have to think about it. What does it mean for you? What does it mean for you, that customer first? Does it even mean it for you? Like, do you believe in it? You have to, but if you decide that that's going to be your thing, you have to truly internalize it and make
Yeah.
it your own. And then
Behave
you
it into.
behave it. You make decisions based on your company culture.
Yeah.
And that becomes the
Yeah.
biggest thing in your company culture.
Yeah. And
So
it's non-negotiable.
it's non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable. Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
so that's thing number one. And thing number two, which is a little bit kind of within the same realm, is being very dependable. That
Okay.
is definitely how I live my life. I am dependable. If I said I'm going to do something, it's going to get done.
Yeah.
In my
Yeah.
first business and web development company, I didn't know about the issues we were going to run into, but I made a promise to deliver on a deadline. And that deadline was 2 days from now, right? And I jumped in to help the developers, stayed up 2 nights in a row. It's crazy, thinking about it, crazy, 2 nights in a row. I don't even know how I did it.
Yeah, I
to
hear
get
it.
it done.
Yeah.
To get it done. Because no excuses. You promised, because
Yeah.
they rely on you. Their
Yeah.
deadline now is dependent on yours. And so when you make, again, being dependable a part of your brand, a part of your company culture, that's going to translate in happy clients and lots of
Yeah.
testimonials and lots of referrals. So
Awesome.
I feel like you have to decide what is a part of your company culture, like what is a
Yeah.
part of your brand culture, and then you make decisions based on that. But that becomes your core principles, your
Yeah,
core
your core
culture.
values, your core mission, absolutely. And what does, within all of that, for Victoria on a personal level, what do you need to do as a success habit? So, as I say, some people get up and they walk in the morning, some meditate, some whatever. What do you do to keep yourself, that best version of yourself, so that you can do all those things?
I am so bad with morning routine. I know everybody's probably thinking she's going to say morning routine. No, I'm not going to
No.
say that. I have kids. Morning routine does not work
Yeah.
with kids. Um, I'll tell you what was really working well for me for most of the summer and fall, and I'm just about to get into that same routine again. We have a pool. I live in Houston, right? So it's warm all the time. Well, not all the time, but most of the time. And we have a heated pool. And I was swimming every single day. And you know how people meditate? They just sit and, meditate. I can't do that. I can't sit and do nothing. To me, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm wasting my time. I have to do
Well,
something.
the illusion that is meditation, but meditation is just when you're fully present.
When you're fully present, when you are, and when you let your brain relax, because mine is like nonstop.
Yeah.
And so when I swim, and our pool is long enough where I can do laps diagonally. And so I just lap and I count the laps, and that's all I do. And that's my meditation. And that's me trying to kind of calm myself and be present and free my mind. And other people walk their dogs or, do yoga or truly meditate. But I need something active where at the same time I kind of know I'm exercising. So I'm like, not just sitting and wasting time, which of course you're not, but that's me.
That's very nice.
So,
but you find what works for you. It's to me, the success habits that I find from most successful people is where they have made time that is a non-negotiable for them.
Yeah.
Yes. Regardless of what the activity is, but it's a time non-negotiable for them where they can just be.
And it's hard. I'll be the first one to say for parents, it's hard, almost next to impossible, because things come up, especially with kids now doing school from home and all of that stuff. Things come up. My schedule is no longer my schedule. My schedule is like interrupted every 5 seconds because something is going on. But you do the best you can, and you have grace towards yourself. Like, I'm going to try to make it non-negotiable, but I know life is going to happen. And I have some other priorities other than me. And as a parent, of course, your kids are always prioritized above you. And so if my personal time is not going to happen, then okay, then today is not going to happen. But my family knows. They're like, oh yeah, mama's going to go for her 1 hour swim in the afternoon. And I just try to make time for that.
Yeah.
Cool. So you just find what works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. I can't believe how long we've been talking already, but let's get into these top 3 tips to help people with their public speaking, because I know that's your expertise. That's what you teach in your membership and everything like that. And I know it'll be top value. So off you go. Top 3 tips for people to help them with their public speaking.
All right. So let's start with the very first one. And the very first one may seem counterintuitive, but unfortunately, it's true for most people. We look for an excuse why we should fail in speaking publicly. I know you're like, no, I'm not. Yes,
Yeah,
you
no,
are.
I believe that. Yeah, because then you
Yes, you
give
are.
yourself the reason not to do it.
You give yourself the reason not to do it. You give yourself an out. You give yourself an excuse why you know you will fail because you're trying to protect yourself. So let me give you an example because you're like, no, I'm not. No, let me give you an example. Have you ever said, but I'm an introvert? And introverts don't like spotlight. And as an introvert, I'm just not going to be good at it. Or have you ever said, but I'm a new coach? What can I teach them? There are people who know a million times more. Or, yes, I am an expert at what I do. I'm an expert in my business, but so are 10 other people, and I don't have anything of value to add. Or English is not my first language, and people will hear my mistakes and they'll think I don't know anything. And those are just some examples. But
Yeah.
all of us have those stories in our head, those limiting beliefs. Those, some people call them limiting beliefs, some call them shadows, some call them stories, some call them excuses. We all have them. And so some of them are a lot easier to work through than others, especially for coaches. Because what I hear from a lot of my students when they come into my program, I don't have a membership, I have a program, but when they
Sorry.
come into my, no problem. When they come into my program, they say, but I don't know what to talk about because everything that I'm going to say, other people say.
Yeah.
How many ways can you describe, and that's my favorite example, how many ways can you describe how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich?
Yeah.
I'm a coach in this, but so are 50 other coaches in my city, and we all do peanut butter and jelly sandwich the same way. Right? You're thinking about it now, and you're thinking, well, yeah, she's right. How am I gonna? But this is where the biggest thing, the biggest gift that you can give yourself. When you have those stories in your head, you have to remember that you are you and you are unique, and only your stories and your experiences and your expertise and your life history are going to play part in your narrative, because
Yeah.
everybody else has their own narratives going on. And you know what? If I was telling people how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I would make it funny because I cannot stand peanuts. I overate them when I was little. I ate about, I don't know, 5 pounds probably. It was a huge bag. And I got so sick, I ended up in the hospital. Never looked at peanuts since then. Cannot stand the smell. I'm not allergic. Cannot stand the smell. I would make it funny. But you may have a different story. When
Yeah.
you are doing your how to make peanut butter and jelly sandwich presentation, you may talk about how every time you make peanut butter and jelly, you remember your grandma, because when you were 5, your grandma was making them for you. And
Mm.
every time you smell that sandwich, you think of your grandma. It's a generational thing. It's love within a family. It's a completely different story than mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the
And
third
people want
person
to
maybe
be
talking something
entertained.
else. Right. And
Yeah.
people want to connect. And that leads us. So remember, you are enough. You are enough just as you are. Another story, and it's all under still tip number 1, right? You're being yourself. You're adding your own narrative to
Yeah.
everything that you share. But also a part of, you being you, you have to remember that people come to you for different reasons. You may be a new coach, right? You may be a new coach who just started, and let's say you are a weight loss coach, okay? Everybody can relate to that. You lost weight yourself, and now you want to, and you developed a great system. Now you want to teach other people, but you only lost 5 pounds, and you're thinking, oh, I really want to teach people how to lose 5 pounds and keep them off. But I know there are all these other coaches who are like lost 1,000,000 pounds and they're like big and everything. But guess what? Somebody in that audience, they cannot even relate to someone who lost 200 pounds. That seems like such a far-fetched dream, but they can relate to you because you are only 5 steps ahead,
Yeah.
not 55. And so don't underestimate yourself that, oh, but I don't have that much experience. There are going to be people in your audience that want to learn from someone who is not that far removed from them, who is within
Yeah.
reach. That dream is almost tangible with you. Whereas if someone was teaching them how to lose 300 pounds, this is not tangible. This is like, I'll never do that.
Yeah.
So you have to work with what you have, and you have to know that what you offer will find an audience member who will connect to that. So remember your own narrative and believing that you are enough just as you are. And that leads us to number 2. And number 2 is treat every presentation, every live stream, every Zoom meeting as a conversation.
Yeah.
I know it's easier said than done, but sometimes you literally, with one of the students, she was shaken before her live stream. She came to me where she couldn't even, she was just a wreck during live streams. And we worked through the program. Of course, there are a lot of other things we talked about, but one of the things we talked about is, okay, there are probably only 10 people on your live stream, maybe only 5. So it's a number that you can easily imagine in your living room.
Yeah.
Imagine you're sitting on the couch in the living room, and these 5 women are sitting right there with you, and they're taking notes. They're not going to be talking, they're taking notes. You're going to be talking, but you're not lecturing them. You are having a conversation.
Yeah.
You are in a relaxed environment where everybody is a friend and they want to learn something that you have so badly. And what you're doing is going to benefit them so much. And so you are talking as if there are people on that other side of that camera that they're actually with you in the same room, and you're all drinking coffee and you're all having a good time. Every single presentation needs to be looked at as a conversation, whether you are on stage, you're having a conversation with your audience, whether you're doing a podcast interview, whether you're doing a live stream, it's a conversation. And you have to really think of it as a conversation. You have to intentionally think of it as a conversation. It's not going to happen automatically, but you have to intentionally kind of turn that switch and say, we're just chatting. I'm just chatting with these people, no pressure.
Yeah.
And when you treat everything as a conversation and you tell stories and you're being yourself, because remember, you're being yourself, you have your own narrative, you are enough. Magic happens. You start feeling a little bit more relaxed. Now, how do we get really relaxed? That's tip number 3. And tip number 3 is, and this is very, very important. Remember how we talked about the science of brain, which I'm not a scientist, full disclaimer. The science of brain, where our brain sees everything as a danger and it protects us like a parent and sends those signals to our body, the actual fear symptoms, physical.
Flight and fight, or the very unmentioned one quite often is freeze. So it's flight or fight. We hear that a lot, but the other side of it is freeze. It's like, I don't know what to do. Yeah,
that's where most people are, in the freeze zone, right? Right. I know, I was there right there when I was 10 years old. So what you need to do is you need to kind of trick your brain to not focus on sending the physical fear signals to your body. You need those signals to stop because they're physical. You can't just say, oh, well, I'm not feeling sweaty. Well, if you are, right? You just need those signals to completely stop. So you're not feeling it because they're not, your brain is not sending them. And the way you do it is by intentionally shifting the focus from you to your audience. Now, you probably heard that before, but have you actually thought about this? Really thought about this? How do you do it? The way you do it is everything becomes about the benefit. Everything becomes about you giving. You completely take yourself out of the picture, and it all becomes about your audience. Literally, every time you open your mouth, every sentence out of your mouth is thought through. How can I structure it so that it makes more sense? How do I say it so that they understand it better? How do I narrate the story so that they get inspired. You think not what your audience is thinking of you, but how you want to make them feel.
Yeah.
It's all about how you want to make them feel. And this is very intentional. It's not going to happen just by, oh, I'm just going to shift my focus away from me to the audience.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't happen this way. What happens is that you intentionally do not allow your brain to go into self-study. How am I feeling? Am I scared? Oh my God, yes, I am scared. Oh, they're judging me. As soon as you go into that territory, your brain is going to immediately continue or start sending fear signals into your body. You're going to start experiencing them. But as long as you stay fully focused on your audience and how you're trying to make them feel and how you're having a conversation, and you take yourself completely out, your brain, it cannot, focus on two big things at the same time. It can only focus on one big thing. And if your brain is fully focused on what you're saying and how you're saying it and how you're trying to benefit, your
Yeah.
brain doesn't have the capacity to continue sending fear signals to your body.
Yeah. So
And
it's
this is a
about visualizing actually, because the brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not. So if you can
that's
bring
right.
up another picture in your brain, then the brain is focusing on that. It doesn't know which one's real. So you can elicit the same response, even though the fear or happiness or whatever isn't actually there.
Because your brain will focus on what you make it focus.
Yeah.
And as long as you are, so, if it's live, obviously you're looking at people, you're standing
Yeah.
there looking at people, and you're having a conversation and you're fully focused on them and they're responding to you, right? People are not talking back, but they're non-verbally responding. They're nodding, they're laughing, they're smiling, they're giving you that non-verbal feedback. You are having a conversation.
Yeah.
And for as long as you're focused on that conversation, you are not going to be allowing your brain to send fear signals.
Yeah.
Same thing with Zoom or a live stream. With a live stream, of course, it's a little different because all you see is a camera. You don't see the reaction. So you have to visualize
Yes.
that
Yeah.
there is
Yeah.
that person who is nodding and
Yeah.
smiling and going like, yes, that's right, I agree. Or with Zoom, you actually see the little screens,
Yeah.
right? And so you may be sweet. Like in my case, I have separate camera, but for those of you who have camera right there on your computer, you pretty much can look at those little screens and you see people
Yes.
respond.
Oh, 1,000,000%. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Awesome.
that helps you stay in that zone of benefiting your audience.
Yeah. And there's an old saying that people won't remember necessarily what you say, but they'll remember how you made them feel. So
Absolutely.
focusing on that is so important. Thank you so much. So one more question two more questions. One is, if you weren't doing what you're doing now, what would you be doing instead?
I would have a business, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I wouldn't be surprised if I open several more businesses.
Yeah.
I love being an entrepreneur. That's my thing. But one of the things that I really would love to do is be a movie producer.
Yeah.
The craziest thing, right? But
Awesome.
10 years ago, I actually went to film school because I did want, and it was like a side hobby. I mean, I am
Yeah.
like, I have master in computer science. And then I decided that I'll just get a master in movie, TV and something. I forgot even how it was called, but it was film school. And it was a master degree. And I didn't finish it. But that really got me so excited about movies.
Yeah.
And what do you know? My now 14-year-old son just got signed by a big agent and a big manager in New York, and now he's auditioning for movies.
All
And
right.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm actually going to be on set of a small film in a week and a half, where he's going to be in
Yeah.
a role. And I'm like, I've come a full circle. And so now I'm like, come on, I told him, you write your own little script, and I'm going to produce your movie. I'm going to
Yeah.
actually
You'll be
make it happen.
standing behind
I'm
the
going to
producer going, what are
I'm
you
gonna be
doing?
the producer and I will put the crew together and I know how to do it. We just, let's do it this summer. So, you never know where your life is
Yeah.
gonna take you. But remember what I said about what feels like a failure becomes a stepping stone, becomes
Oh,
experience, becomes a
absolutely.
lesson.
It brings it into your realm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It
I love it.
absolutely does. Everything I learned back then, even though I didn't get the degree, I didn't finish it, everything I learned, I'm actually using right now with him.
Yeah.
So funny.
It's amazing you said that one of our members put something like that. You're just reminding me of what he said. He said all the courses he's ever done, he was always looking for the answer to a puzzle. And he said, but nobody ever told him that underneath this puzzle, there was a big maze. And he actually said our membership has suddenly made that difference to him, that now he can navigate the maze and just pull on all the stuff he has learned before, because now he knows what to do with it. So I love that you said that. It just reminded me of that. You know, we often say, oh my God, I did that course and it didn't work. I did that course and it didn't work. But all of the courses we've done have shaped us, have made us, have given it, like how many times have we listened to something and then we listen to it twice or three times and go, I didn't hear that the first time. When you're ready to hear it, you will hear it then, you know, when that lesson is ready. So I don't think there's any wasted programs or whatever. They've built and layered up all of that. Cool. So the last question is, how can people contact you if they would like to contact you, Victoria?
Absolutely. The best place to find me is my website. It's www.byvictorial.com, B-Y, Victoria, L, for my last name, Lioznyansky. You know, there'll be a test at the end.
That's why I didn't even try and introduce you by your last name.
I know, you didn't even go there. You were like, no.
Victoria. Let's hope nobody notices that I didn't say my last name.
So funny. You know what? It's just funny, honestly. So byvictorial.com. Come to my website. You can reach me through my website. You can get my free masterclass that I'm running all the time. You will really love it because I am talking about a lot of things that are going to help you in your speaking journey, whether you are speaking for work, whether you're speaking for your business. You're going to really, really enjoy it. And I also have a group coaching program by application only. So reach out to me. I would love to talk to you.
Awesome. Victoria, thank you so much for having this chat to me. I know that this will go up on YouTube as well, but I know that people watching will get so much value out of it. And I just love how we just, you know, have this awesome conversation. As you say, it's a conversation. And we've just had a conversation and it's been great and it's gone up and down and, you know, that sort of thing. So thank you so much for doing that and spending the time with me today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
That's okay. So you can rest easy now because I'm already in tomorrow and you're going to go to bed.
I know. You're in the future and I'm in the past and I'm in the, 10 p.m. past.
Yeah. So the future is looked after. We're already here. All right, my darling. Thank you so much. And to everyone else, it's bye from us.
Bye. Thank you.